You are tuned in to episode 16 of Turn Coffee into Client podcast show. I'm your host, Bella Networking Guru, the speaker and networking expert. Exhibitions and conferences hire me as their online networking keynote speaker. So, guys, in today's episode, I want to share how excited I am to hear the news that Michelle Obama will be launching her own podcast show available on Spotify. Guys, I would love to share with you Michelle Obama's advert from Spotify.
Hey everyone, I just want to talk to you real quick about something I've been working on lately. It's called the Michelle Obama Podcast. I can't wait for you to listen. In this first season, I'm going to be talking with some of the people I'm closest with. My mom, my brother, my friends, my colleagues, and many others. We'll be discussing the relationships that make us who we are. We'll be talking about the challenges and the joys of being a parent or a spouse, the friendships that help us through the toughest times, or the growth we experience when we lean on the colleagues and mentors around us. What I love about these conversations is that they're topics and issues that we're all dealing with no matter what's going on, whether that's a global pandemic or a nationwide reckoning with race. My hope is that this podcast can be a place for us to sort through the questions that we're all trying to answer, a place to open up and be a little vulnerable and have some fun along the way. And most importantly, I hope this podcast sparks ideas and topics that you can open up with within your own circles. Maybe it'll inspire you to have some conversations with loved ones that you've been meaning to have. So, I hope you'll join me for the Michelle Obama Podcast. Episodes start July 29th. Listen for free only on Spotify.
When I first listened to this advert on Spotify YouTube channel, I was so inspired. So I want to give Michelle Obama another round of applause. Don't you guys agree? The reason I'm so inspired is the advert was really well constructed. We already know who Michelle Obama is, and it's really motivating to get excited. Oh my goodness, I cannot wait to listen to Michelle Obama's podcast. The advert also gave me an inspiration to share why it's so important during this current time to start a podcast. And I want to share some of my tips about why I started a podcast and how I think it can help you if you are also unemployed, changing a career, especially during the corona pandemic, or you've been on lockdown, you've been on furlough, and you're currently job hunting. Why starting a podcast will really help you. And I also want to give a few tips for business owners who are really struggling right now due to lockdown, due to everything that's going on right now, and why a podcast is a great low-cost marketing tool. And I really need to emphasize the word low cost. I feel it's so important to share my journey starting a podcast. My podcast cost me less than £50 to start. I didn't have a clue what a podcast was, first of all, even how to start a podcast. So if I can do it, you can do it.
Coming up next.
Guys, do listen to the ending of the podcast because I will share with you tips if you're unemployed, job hunting right now, why starting a podcast will actually help you during that interview stage. And if you are an entrepreneur, business owner, or a struggling business facing challenges right now, I'd like to share with you why starting a podcast is an excellent low-cost marketing tool that can grow your business. So stay tuned for some of those tips. So before I share some of the tips with you about how to start a podcast and the benefits of a podcast, what I'd like to share with you is my analysis of Michelle Obama's podcast.
Something wonderful for your ears and your mind.
I believe whenever you're starting a new project or a marketing activity, you really have to have a strategy. Understand why you're doing it and the results you want to achieve, because this will keep you motivated and keep you on the right path. So I want to share some of my thoughts on the very well constructed content that Michelle Obama used in her advert that will help you to understand why a podcast works, how to get started, and to get the best results, so that you create enjoyable episodes for your audience to enjoy, so they come back episode after episode and your podcast channel can grow. Michelle Obama opened her advert clearly detailing the purpose and the why she is launching her podcast, sharing that she will be talking to the closest people to her, for example, her mom, her brother, friends and colleagues, talking about relationships. So she's actually communicating to you her passion, why she's starting the podcast. This is really important because people don't really buy the service, or they don't buy, say, a product. They want to know the whys. So that's the buy-in. With a podcast, there needs to be that passionate buy-in. And she talked about a togetherness. And she talked about dealing with matters that mean something to all of us. So I really love that content there, because not only is she sharing something about herself, conversations she has with the nearest and dearest to her, she's actually stating something that's real, that all of us need to have these conversations, and all of us are going through different challenges. That might be the coronavirus or other challenges that are all precious to us, and it matters. The other part she mentioned is she was quite open and said in such a delightful way that there'll be a vulnerability to the podcast, which means she's going to be really open. And this is actually a really great marketing of her personal brand, because we already know what Michelle Obama stands for, and she's welcoming us to listen to her podcast, because she's also saying, I may not get it right and I might be vulnerable and I want to share this. So that makes me feel like, my goodness, I really want to tune in to this podcast. This is something you want to think about when you're creating a podcast strategy. How can you also be open for the audience to want to tune into you? There must be something that motivates the audience to follow and subscribe, to think, yes, I don't want to miss a single episode. She also ended her advert by talking about, I hope my podcast sparks ideas and topics for you to open up. So she's also being really, really relatable, and she's also being current to say, I may be a celebrity, I may be the formal first lady, but my conversations I'm having on my podcast, you may want to have these in real life. And I really love that genuine content. The other thing she said to close the advert, the other thing she said to close her advert was she repeated the word a few times, conversations. And I think when people, businesses, professionals think about starting a podcast, one of the things they might struggle with, what am I going to talk about? I don't have enough content. I don't have enough subject areas. And this is greatly expressed in her advert, the word conversations. So a podcast, if you feel scary that you don't know, that you don't have the skills or the confidence or expertise to launch a podcast, never forget, it is just conversations. It is an audio conversation. Podcasting is also great for job seekers or if you're searching for a new career. We know right now we're experiencing high unemployment. Have you ever thought about when you are job hunting and you're going through your online job searches, it's actually a considerable impact if you were to have a podcast. And I want to tell you some benefits where a podcast could help you during your job hunting. A podcast will allow you to talk about your skills. Could you imagine every episode you can share information about your profession, information about your job skills, information about your experience? Better still, you could talk about a case study within your job. Now, this is really rewarding. Just picture this for 5 minutes. You've been unemployed for some time due to the coronavirus. You finally are scheduled for your first interview after so many weeks or so many months. And you will ask the question, so what have you been doing with your time since you have been unemployed? Or what have you been doing with your time during the lockdown? Take a moment to visualize your answer during the interview, sharing that you started a podcast. Believe me, this is a rewarding, impressive answer that will contribute to your interview success. So why should you start a podcast for your business? First of all, let's be clear. Podcasting is a low-cost marketing. If you are still in business, podcast is a great tool to communicate with your audience, existing clients, potential clients, that you are still in business. I consider podcasting somewhat a networking tool because it allows you to have conversations and build relationships with your audience. I have grown a love for podcasting. My background, as many of you may know, I'm a networking keynote speaker. I didn't have a clue what podcasting was. And my podcast experience came about during Christmas last year, where I wanted to do something different for Christmas. I didn't just want to sit around eating mince pies and all the glorious foods during Christmas. So I took the plunge to learn a new skill, and that skill was podcasting. One of the reasons it's great for your business is it gives you the opportunity to share your expertise. about your business. Many of us who start our business, we start our business out of passion. Therefore, that means you are skilled in what you do. Regardless what your industry might be, you started your business for the love of doing what you do. For example, you may be a cupcake baker, you may be an accountant, you may be a gardener, you may have a fitness business. Whatever your business is, just remember that day when you decided, I'm going to start a business. In this current climate, it's more important to have a podcast. We need to communicate to our audience, our potential customers, our existing clients that we are still in business. A podcast is a low-cost marketing tool. It's also a networking tool because it allows conversation. So just take 5 minutes and think about the benefits of potential customers, new clients, hearing episodes on your podcast, sharing your business services. You will have a platform to share why you're passionate about your business, maybe how you started your business. You can detail the services or the products that you sell in your business and share details of your website so that these potential customers can get in touch with you. A podcast has a return on your time, investment, and marketing. Once that podcast episode is produced, you can share your episodes on all of your social media platforms, which will allow you to grow an audience and a following. And at the end of the day, keep communicating that you are still in business despite the difficult challenges we are facing as a business during the coronavirus pandemic. Guys, let me know what you thought about this episode. Also, do let me know if you'd like me to do more of these episodes, sharing why it's important to start a podcast and tips on how you can start your very first podcast for job hunting or to grow your business. I would love to hear from you. Just visit the website turncoffeeintoclients.com and you can contact me by email, text, Zoom, telephone, at your convenience. Thank you so much for listening to episode 15 on Bella Networking Podcast Show. And guys, don't forget to grab your coffees, teas, or whatever hot drink of your choice and tune in on July the 29th to listen to the launch of Michelle Obama's podcast show, which is available on Spotify. In the meantime, please do share this podcast episode with friends and colleagues in your network so together we can grow the Bella Networking Podcast channel. Do subscribe and follow, and I look forward to seeing you in my next episode. Guys, take care and stay safe.